Thank you. So, hello everybody. Good afternoon. This isn't my usual place to talk, so I'm a slightly bit intimidated and feel a little bit out of my element, but hopefully we'll get over that as we get to know each other and talk about the history of Red Clay State Historic Park. So you can go to the next slide. I don't want to sound bossy and be like, next. So a little bit about me. I am a park interpretive ranger at Red Clay State Historic Park in Cleveland, Tennessee. I've been there full-time since August of 2022, but I am a local. I grew up 10 minutes down the road from the park. So the park is something near and dear to my heart, not just because of the history, but because of my personal history with it. So yeah, this is just all my fancy dancy stuff. I do want to say this is a little bit of a humble disclaimer. Ava said subject matter expert. I would like to make it abundantly clear that at my core, I am a biologist. But this is all stuff that I've picked up and have come to really, truly care deeply about. And I very much enjoy sharing it with other people. So if some of the biology bleeds in there, it definitely is going to. Don't think anything of it. It's just a part of the full story of the Cherokee people. Next. So, overview of the park. How many of you guys have been to Red Clay before? What gives, man? Exactly, you got to come visit. I'm just giving you a hard time. So, Red Clay State Historic Park was the last site of the Cherokee People's Council meetings prior to their forced removal on the Trail of Tears in 1838. Are any of you guys subject matter experts?
I've been called expert.
Bless. So between 1832 and 1838, there were 11 general council meetings held at Red Clay. And there could be 4,000 to 5,000 people at each one. And not just Cherokee people. There would be outside visitors attending these meetings as well. Red Clay was also the place where a lot of Cherokee people found out they were going to lose everything. They were at Red Clay, a lot of them, when the verdict was delivered that this treaty was signed, it's being upheld. So Red Clay is, for one, a sacred site, which I'll get into more in the rest of the presentation, but it's also a solemn site. Because, again, this is where a lot of people found out they were going to lose everything. And at Red Clay, there was a stockade, which are camps that Cherokee people were held in prior to removal. And so I grew up on a beef cattle farm. So when I hear stockades, I think cattle. You're taking the cattle to auction. The term stockades is used very, very exactingly for the camps that the Cherokee people were held in. But we'll talk more about that here in a minute. So to this day, the mission of Red Clay State Historic Park is to preserve, protect, and share the history and culture of the Cherokee people, and the natural beauty of the land that we protect as rangers. So a little bit of background info before Red Clay. So the council meetings of the Cherokee National Council were not always held at Red Clay. They used to be held at their capital city of New Echota down in Georgia. But in 1832, after the Indian Removal Act of 1830, which allowed the president at the time, Andrew Jackson, to negotiate treaties with Native Americans to forfeit their land to the government, Georgia started including Cherokee land in its land lotteries. So they were pulling Cherokee land right out from under their feet. That doesn't sound very fair to me. Does it sound fair to you? It's like, think of it like this. It's like someone goes into your house and takes a bunch of your stuff and sells it on Facebook Marketplace without asking you. It's not very nice. And you don't get that money either. But what's crazy about this to me, what has always gotten me, is there were, if I'm not mistaken, 2 different Supreme Court cases that upheld Cherokee national sovereignty. But those were ignored because that's something you can do, apparently. Cherokee sovereignty was ignored, and Georgia continued removal operations against the Cherokee. So real quick in the picture, have you guys ever been to New Echota?
I haven't been there yet.
What?
Yeah.
We love our friends at New Echota. We love them. They're coming to the cultural celebration.
I've been meaning to go down there.
You got to. Van House is awesome too. But at New Echota, they have built replica structures of the Cherokee Phoenix print shop. And they actually have a functional printing machine with all the sorts. And you can go in with one of the rangers sometimes and actually print a copy of the Cherokee Phoenix. But this building right here is the 2-story council house that they had built as a replica of the one that was here when the Cherokee had council meetings at New Echota. Yeah.
I'm really struck by the architecture.
Mhm.
Now, I know Cherokee is in there. I do know.
Mm-hmm.
But that's 2-story, I mean, I've never, so was that typical or was that something special to that place that it's a 2-story building?
So there's, to be reductive, there's kind of 2 different phases of architecture with the Cherokee. This is very broad strokes. So there is like pre-contact, where think of like open-sided structures. And then in the winter, they would have a fully enclosed structure, like covered with clay, mud, dirt.
Like the model that we have.
Yes, yes, thank you.
You have wall and dock houses and then there was more of a European influence.
Mm-hmm. So when, like, early 1800s on, and even before that, a lot of Cherokee buildings were being built in that more European style, especially during the time of New Echota in the early 1800s, and especially at Red Clay. Red Clay was the height of assimilation to white culture for the Cherokee.
That's also part of what makes the history of our cabin so difficult to translate. And, that's one thing that we learned in my historical archaeology classes. There comes a point where you have so much, like, cross-pollination between cultures, too. Because, you could be looking at a household that was truly, like, Euro-American settlers, but they could still have indigenous styles of pottery and things like that, too, and vice versa. So it gets really hard to tell who was living where based on just the style of their house and stuff that they have at a certain point.
Yeah, thank you, Ava. No, please feel free to, anybody feel free to raise your hand, ask a question, feel free to chime in. I don't like to just stand up here and talk. I like for it to be a conversation, so do not be afraid. Yeah, good, good. But shameless plug, go see our friends at New Echota, and I'm ready for the next one. So this is where it gets a little hairy. A little bit more complicated. So the Georgia Guard, after 1830, was actively evicting Cherokee people from their property, from their homes. And at the same time, Georgia was passing laws that led to the Cherokee not being able to meet for council anymore. So they're in a time of crisis. People are taking their land. People are threatening them with violence, not just the government and its constituents, but settlers too. They need to meet for council. They need to figure out what they are going to do. They need to make a plan. So they packed up their council and moved just across the Tennessee-Georgia border to Red Clay. Someone asked me the other day, why is Red Clay called Red Clay? Well, the Cherokee called it Red Earth Place, Ela-wo-dee-yi. And so became Red Clay. And the actual property of Red Clay is only a small fraction today of what it was back then. The actual Red Clay stretched on down into Georgia, towards Cahutta and Varnell, and even on up further towards Cleveland. Like, it was a much bigger piece of land. But unfortunately, what the state was able to get today, well, fortunately also, has arguably one of the most important features of Red Clay, which we'll get to in a minute. Sorry I keep doing that to you guys. So one of the Supreme Court cases that upheld Cherokee tribal sovereignty was Worcester. Is that how you say it?
I've heard Worcester, I've heard Worcester.
It's like Worcestershire sauce.
We can go with Worcester.
Worcestershire sauce.
Exactly. Either way, Samuel Worcester. That's how I'm going to say it. That's how they say it in our film at the park. They say Samuel Worcester. He was a missionary to the Cherokee. And I'm losing the broad strokes of this Supreme Court case. Basically, they were saying that they have a right to stay on this land. And through A to B to C, the Cherokee also have a right to stay on this land. And so the Supreme Court ruled in favor of Samuel Worcester and other white settlers, white Americans that were living in Cherokee, on Cherokee Nation property. They said, if you guys can stay there, the Cherokee can stay there. And tribal sovereignty was upheld through Worcester versus Georgia.
He was a missionary, wasn't
Yes, he was. His house is actually at the original structure. It's the only original structure I know of at New Echota State Park, but his house is there. It's a little haunted, but we can talk about that later.
Yeah.
The Moravians he was a Moravian missionary, right, Ava?
I'm not going to make a call. Really
That's fair.
Um,
I'm familiar with the Moravian missionaries in particular. They were German missionaries.
they
That's like a whole other presentation. I could talk about that for several hours, and we can certainly. Mm-hmm.
They were either Moravian or Presbyterian.
Moravian. Yep. Before we continue, does anybody have any other questions? Because I'm throwing a lot of stuff at you. Go for it.
You may have already touched on this, but a big reason why Samuel Worcester was representing the Cherokee people in the Supreme Court was because there was also a law passed that Native Americans could not represent themselves in court. They could not, basically, if there was a crime committed against them, they could not represent that crime. So having
he? That was in Georgia, right?
I'm pretty sure both of them were in Georgia.
Well, I don't think the federal government ever passed a law that said Cherokee couldn't represent themselves.
I think it was Native Americans brought it. But if they're, and I could be wrong on that, but I know that was a big factor in why he was advocating for them, because they could not represent themselves in court. That's the big thing.
But they did represent themselves in court at one time for a case that was before this one. And the whole reason for is basically if the Supreme Court had the ruling, and if the president had upheld it, it would have been war between the United States and Georgia, because Georgia was the one passing the law that was taking the lands, and that's my understanding anyway.
Well, Jackson got that process started with the Indian Removal Act of 1830. That was the permission for states like Georgia to begin passing those laws. And Jackson continued to ignore the Supreme Court decisions and things like that. And though he was not the enactor of the Trail of Tears, his vice president, who later became president, was. So Jackson very much got the process started.
Well, when was gold in Georgia?
Oh gosh, 1820s. I want to say 1820s down in Dahlonega, which, fun fact, is where they film a lot of Hallmark movies. You can like go tour like the Hallmark movie sets. I haven't been.
Correlation.
Oh gosh, yeah. So one of the things I'm not as used to talking to a group of adults. I'm very much used to like a second grade audience. So one of the questions I always ask to check their knowledge is, what did the Cherokee find on their land that the government and settlers wanted? Gold. So gold was very much a factor, along with fertile farmland and, for lack of a better way to put it, greed in general.
Yeah, railroad access.
Mm-hmm. Mail routes.
Plantations.
Mm-hmm.
So the case before this case, it was called the Cherokee Nation versus the state of Georgia, but the Supreme Court in that one ruled against the Cherokee. against the Cherokee. And that's why the Worcester, he was trying to support the Cherokees by doing this lawsuit. That's my understanding.
I don't read more about it.
So yeah, no, Wooster was trying to support the Cherokee through this because he was an advocate for the Cherokee. He lived very closely alongside them and worked with them. And it's very much a shame that the Supreme Court's decision to uphold tribal sovereignty was later ignored. It really, really is. Regardless of what came before it, this was very much the ignoring this was very much a blow to the Cherokee and other natives being able to stay.
And during the war, did most of the Indian, Native Americans favor Britain or something?
Which war are you talking about?
Revolutionary War?
Yeah. There were a lot of alliances with Britain just because they were opposed to American colonization.
Mhm.
They really didn't prefer to deal with Britain either.
Yeah,
You know, it's not really like they had a winning.
it's kind of a lesser of two.
Yeah. Watson's presentation talked a lot about it.
I'm ready for the next slide, Ava. Here's the fun part. It's not the fun part. So during the time of the Red Clay Council meetings, which again, there were 11 of between 1832 and 1838, two parties arose within the Cherokee Nation. I'm gonna put a big disclaimer. Everybody see this italicized text at the bottom of the screen. The topic of these parties is still very contentious within the Cherokee tribes today. Do not go to a cultural event and just be like, yeah, so who do you agree with? Not that any of you guys are going to do that. There's just some people I've explained this to who are like, I'm going to go ask them. I'm like,
You better have those hands ready.
be a little bit more tactful about that. So, on the left, we've got the Nationalist Party. The Nationalist Party was led by Principal Chief John Ross. He and the Nationalist Party advocated resistance to removal through lobbying Congress in legal pathways. Basically, they would use any means they could other than all-out war. And they represented the vast majority of the Cherokee Nation at the time. Most people fell into that school of thought. Then, on the other end of the spectrum, you have the Treaty Party, led by Major Ridge. He was a tribal council member. If I'm not mistaken, he also served alongside Jackson in, I can't remember what war. Yes. So the Treaty Party, they believed that removal was inevitable and they wanted to protect Cherokee rights through treaty making. They thought, well, if we go ahead and make this treaty, then we can negotiate for the best outcome we can. And, oh, yeah, go ahead.
I've heard someone say, and I don't remember where I was. I did hear someone say, talking about this, that John Ross, I didn't realize they represented the majority of the Cherokee Nation. This person was saying that a lot of the younger people tended to agree more with him, whereas this party was more older people.
I could, yeah. I could see that. I could see where that makes sense. So a lot of the Treaty Party, it was kind of a, let's cut our losses and go. Let's make the best out of this situation because they felt removal was inevitable. So I can see where an older group of people, older generations may find more comfort in that than fighting. Because who's usually leading protests? It's the younger folks, right? Yeah, Ava.
I'll also point out that they did not even do a ban of Cherokee.
Yes.
They went out earlier.
Yep.
before removal happened.
1820.
To protect a lot of their traditions that were being lost in the efforts to assimilate to avoid removal. So, you know, that was kind of how they got started. A lot of people forget
Mm-hmm.
I'm kin to Cherokee. I was always growing up, I was kin to Chief Cherokee John Ross. And I was proud of it, I'd say, but I went to the Smoky Mountains and the Cherokee National Park, and they automatically put me in. But I know that I'm mostly not kin to John Ross. But that's right. I did go there in Cherokee, North Carolina,
Mm-hmm.
to the assembly where they make decisions.
Yeah, the council meetings.
Women sit at the front row of this peace, and they have a peace chief that knows how to make peace. And they have a war chief in the back.
Mhm.
He sits out until there's a war. But he was there, and women were great at making decisions.
Yeah.
That's what it means.
Yeah, no, I mean, with a side tangent about Cherokee society and their societal norms, it is so starkly different than the European ideology that was brought over starting around the 1500s. When explorers came in and they saw women having a different but incredibly well-respected role, it was a culture shock. They did not like what they saw because women were in council meetings. Women had a voice in government. Women, kids little girls love to hear this part. It always cracks me up. Women decided what happened to prisoners of war. So you could keep them as a slave, you could release them, you could execute them, whatever your heart desires. So women were given that privilege, that, in a way, honor. And Cherokee society is what we call matrilineal. So the society we live in is technically patrilineal. You take on your mother took on your father's last name when they got married. And it's more important, not as much today, but back in the day, as in like 20 years ago, 30 years ago, maybe 40 or so. Well, that's a special case. Vast majority. So it used to be more important who your father was than who your mother was. But in Cherokee society, growing up, you would live in a house with, your dad could live there, but a lot of it was the other women from your mom's side of the family. Like there would be these multi-generational, largely female households. And women owned oftentimes the improvements to land. Land was owned by the whole tribe, but individuals owned the improvements to that land. So just a side tangent about women in Cherokee culture. I'm sure Ava and I could do a whole presentation. Oh my God, yes. Theta Purdue she's a wonderful, wonderful woman. But I'm ready for the next slide. This is my word salad page. I don't like making presentations that are mostly words, but I couldn't find a lot of pictures. So when the Cherokee were meeting at Red Clay, it was a very, very, I'm going to use the word contentious again, contentious time. It was a very stressful time. Like Red Clay was a safe space for the Cherokee. And the Nationalist Party was doing what they believed was everything they could to try and stay on their lands. They were meeting with Congress. They were petitioning. They were sending delegates up to DC and back to discuss alternative strategies, alternative means, so the government could get what they want, and the Cherokee could also get what they want. And so it got to a point where Jackson was real tired of the back and forth. The administration at the time was pretty sick of it. So they said, all right, we're going to have a meeting down in New Echota, and if you don't show up, we're going to assume that you agree with whatever we talk about and whatever decision is made. So on December 29th, 1835, the treaty party went and met with the delegation Jackson had sent down to New Echota. And on that fateful day, the Treaty of New Echota was signed by Major Ridge and other members of the treaty party like Elias Boudinot and Stan Waddy. And this was done without the authorization of the Cherokee National Council, without the majority rule. And so upon learning this, the Cherokee National Council objected to it. Because again, the majority had not ruled. And the US government's position was again that because their delegates were absent, it was assumed that they approved of the treaty. It's like, you weren't there, so it's like your family deciding where to eat for dinner without you. And it's like, oh, well, I hate that place. It's like, well, where were you? To put it very lightly. So Ross drew up a petition asking Congress to void the treaty. He personally delivered it to Congress in 1838 with 16,000 signatures. And that is about the population size of the Eastern Cherokee Nation at the time, including women and children. And I think that's dang impressive. Like, can you imagine the amount of paper? I know it wouldn't have been, but I just imagine like in cartoons how they unroll the scroll. It's just all down the floor, across the room. And then this really crusty picture is the signing of the Treaty of New Echota. I don't know why it's so crusty. But this was a very, very shocking decision. This was a rug pull in a way for the majority of the Cherokee. I sometimes try to imagine the shock, the instant jolt of fear that the Cherokee people must have felt when they learned this at Red Clay, at a council meeting. And I just can't imagine. Can't imagine. Next slide. Yeah, go ahead.
Not to make light of this situation, but like clearly people didn't like this decision.
No.
How did the treaty people get away with weaseling out this agreement, and does no one notice until they showed up to the you know, like, hey, guess what, guys? how did that?
They'll have to wait until they go west of that.
We'll get there in just a minute.
It goes down.
We will, yes, it does. To say the least. So, the removal. The Cherokees' efforts to retain their ancestral home were not enough. In May of 1838, at the order of the military, per Martin Van Buren, president at the time, federal troops began rounding up and holding Cherokee people in stockades. And again, I want to remind you that a stockade is usually what cows are held in when they are sent to auction. Families were separated. The elderly and ill were forced from their homes at gunpoint. And white looters ransacked their homes as they were being forced away. I like to tell the kids at the park, because you have to, when explaining this to kids, you have to make those connections. So I describe to them, like, you're being forced out of your home. You don't have time to grab your stuffed animal you sleep with every night, your blanket, your favorite pair of tennis shoes, the ones that are super comfortable, your water bottle. You can just grab whatever you can carry in your hands. Maybe not even a coat if you don't see it on the way out. People had to walk the trail, largely, some of them, without shoes.
They had crops in their fields that would never be harvested.
Mm-hmm.
What you know, is that they took the boats were stocked. They put their cows and other animals
Mhm.
on that boat.
Yeah, those flatboats. Yeah, the flatboats are brutal, you guys. I should have put a picture of one. Hindsight's 2020. Flatboats are exactly what they sound like. And they were some of the vehicles used to transport Cherokee folks on the Trail of Tears.
Okay, and I picture the flatboat whenever I was in school.
Sweet, thank you. So, I try to imagine what Red Clay would have looked like. At the time of removal at Red Clay, there were 96 log structures. That's a lot of buildings. And it just became a ghost town. It's like everybody disappeared overnight. And I can't fathom. And on top of the tragedy of having to leave your home, of the ill, the elderly, children being forced out at gunpoint, the journey was awful. Like on the flatboats. People usually think when they hear there were water routes, it's like, oh, that must have been way easier. No. You were exposed to the elements on a flatboat. There was nowhere to go inside. You were stuck on top of that thing through winter. And not to mention, if you hit a bump, there's nothing to hold on to. You're going in the water. It was not any easier. Some people argue that it was more brutal.
200 people on this flatboat. Way overcrowded.
Yeah. Illness was everywhere because we learned in the last many years what epidemics are like. There was countless diseases, whether it be from something viral or bacterial, from eating spoiled food, drinking dirty water a lot of the times. People got sick from eating food that wasn't actually edible, like wild plants and things, because as they got away from their homeland, they started to recognize less and less plants. They didn't know what these things out west necessarily were. They didn't know where the good hunting spots were. So one of the survivors' accounts that we reference a lot at Red Clay is that of Rebecca Nugent. She talks about, now mind you, she was anywhere from 3 to 6 years old when she walked the Trail of Tears. And the experience was so traumatic that she can recount it in great detail. She remembers that they had to eat a lot of salt pork. Has anyone ever had salt pork?
Like country ham,
Very similar, but like
way saltier.
way saltier.
Heard that.
Worse. Like I've had it and it's like it instantly dries out your mouth. And once they ran out of that as rations, they had to eat raw flour. Even like on a baked good, if all the flour doesn't get mixed in, you take a bite and you get some of that, that's nasty, isn't it? It's not a good texture. It also dries out your mouth. People were having to eat that to survive. And so the number we use at Red Clay, here, let me put it this way. I normally do this with younger kids. So I want you to imagine when you were a kid, if you had 4 or more people living at home with you, raise your hand. So see, nowadays it's a lot different as adults. But for those of us that raised our hands, if your family back then was to walk the Trail of Tears, you would have lost at least one family member each. 16,000 Cherokee people started that journey west, and only about 12,000 made it.
I remember John Ross's wife gave her coat up because I think it was snow or it was freezing and helped the child live, and she died in the process.
I'm sure there are so many stories like that from the Trail of Tears. And another one, not to harp on this, but it's so important to talk about because the reason we learn history is to ensure that things like this don't happen to our fellow humans again. But the story that stuck out with me the most is from Rebecca Nugent. Her family was lucky and they lost nobody on the Trail of Tears. But the family they were traveling with that was sharing a wagon with them, they were not so lucky. She vividly remembers the young baby of the mother of that family passing away. And she describes the wailing, the sobbing, the screaming from this mother as she is pulled away from her dead child. And Rebecca described the military digging a very shallow grave, barely covering the baby up, and making the woman continue walking. Some of mankind's most brutal acts were enacted on the Trail of Tears. And unfortunately, several other times through history after that. But by March 1839, the survivors had arrived out west. And with the weight of those they lost on their shoulders, the Cherokee Nation began again. That's where we get to red clay today.
Rain sometime.
It is. Bye, train.
We refer to it as a moment of reflection.
Yeah, there you go. I can't watch that. It's going to make me motion sick. Why do I do that every time? I like to look at the graffiti on trains.
I think we're good.
Okay. Before we get into the modern day, does anybody have any questions, comments, moral dilemmas? I'm sure there are plenty of those.
One of the things the Chief Chick John Ross did was delay getting money so that each person would have money to buy property or whatever in the new land.
Mm-hmm.
And it was maybe Van Buren or somebody. It wasn't Jackson.
It was probably Van Buren then. Van Buren was, like I said earlier, Jackson began, set everything in motion, and then Van Buren enacted it. But
I'll get back to clarification. Some of these we were talking about this. I did not realize that there had been that many meetings
Mhm.
prior to the trip.
yeah.
I knew I had heard there was a big meeting
Mm-hmm.
before they left and all that, but I didn't realize this is where they've actually been meeting
Yep.
for 7 years prior.
Mm-hmm. Only about 30 minutes away. Now the train. Yay! I can think again.
I brought this up at a previous
Yeah.
thing, but part of the Treaty of New Echota, it established a trust fund for the benefit of the Cherokee people that still exists to this day. And I don't ever, people usually don't hear that, so I thought that was interesting.
No, that it is very interesting to talk about the provisions in the Treaty of New Echota. One of them that has been very relevant in the last few years is that the Cherokee Nation was entitled to having a non-voting delegate represent them in Congress. And they are still fighting to have that today. They've got someone picked out. She seems like a very lovely and very intelligent lady. But it's one of those things.
So we don't recognize that today either?
No. It's like with, if I'm not mistaken, with the United Gadua Band, they were promised payment for their land. And it was, where is it?
There were some tribes when they were removed that they were supposed to have land, and then come to find out they didn't.
Ah,
Because other tribes had been moved into basically the same
Yes.
area, so they had to either buy it from that other tribe or disperse. I mean, the whole thing was just botched.
yeah.
They tried to make
Like
it
the
a
lights,
state,
like
they tried to make it a state at one time too, I think, like New Oklahoma or New something.
I don't know. One of the things I wanted to mention, I'm glad you brought that up. Not only is treaty versus nationalist party a bit of a hot topic for the Cherokee, but there is some internal strife between tribes over things like being promised land, and you get there and there's somebody else already there. So that is an issue out west for the Cherokee even to this day.
How about the ones that went east? They ran from everything.
Yes.
Are they still there?
That's the eastern band of the Cherokee Indians. Oh yeah, they are out there. All right, next slide whenever you can, Ava. So, what do we do? What do we do with all this? Hey, yep. I think I use this picture of him constantly. He always shares it on Facebook. I'm like, thanks, honey. But Red Clay State Historic Park will forever be preserved as the last council ground of the Cherokee prior to the removal. Basically, this is our mission statement saying that we want to give visitors the opportunity to experience a deep sense of the Cherokee people and how they were forever changed by the removal and the Trail of Tears on the land where these events occurred. Our goal is to help people experience history in the place where it happened. So to do that, we do a lot of interpretive and educational programs. So people ask me what I do. I pretty much just say field trips. So during the school year, it is field trips, field trips, field trips, all age groups, kindergarten through high school. And we are able to share the history of the Cherokee people and connect it to these kids in a way that they understand and that they really take to heart. And one of the ways we're able to do this, shameless plug, is through the Tennessee State Parks Conservancy, which is a nonprofit that helps fund Tennessee Title I school field trips to Tennessee State Parks. So if you know anybody that works at a Title I school, let them know that they can get funding for their educational program at a Tennessee State Park.
I will relay that to the appropriate parties.
Yes, please do. You can send them my email, my number, whatever, because it is a fantastic opportunity. We got about $9,000 last school year for our Title I schools. So that's about low income. Most of the kids are on, if not all of them, are on free or reduced lunch, among other things. So we also host an annual Cherokee cultural celebration. Ava will be there. I brought a flyer about it too. I'm going to Vanna White it for you. So we have representatives from the Cherokee Nation and the Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians coming out this year. We did get a connection for the UKB finally, and she was very excited, but I don't think she can make it this year because it was short notice. But we should have representatives from all 3 federal tribes next year. It's authentic music, dancing. There are people selling their crafts. We're going to have a rehabilitated red-tailed hawk release on that Saturday at about 12. Sonny Ledford and the Warriors will be there. That's always you always got to hype them. Yes. So up-and-coming Cherokee country artist is coming. Beautiful voice. Oh my gosh, you guys. He sings exclusively in Cherokee. And it just, even though I don't speak the language at all, it still hits where it needs to. And I highly encourage you guys, even if you don't come for anything else, come to experience that.
He's younger than me too.
Yeah, I know. He's younger than both of us. Makes me feel old. But it's $5 a vehicle. So if your car looks like a clown car, I will just say, thank you for your $5 bill. Please enjoy the event. You got people on top of each other. I'm not going to say a word. I'll just ask you how many people you got so I can keep tally. But it's cash only because we haven't figured out a good online system. I'm sorry. And there will be 2 exhibition stickball games, one Saturday and one Sunday as well. So we also maintain and improve the natural environment of red clay, which I could talk about for centuries. So here in this picture, right back there is the Blue Hole Spring, which we'll talk about more in just a minute. This is with nonprofit Waterways, Chattanooga. They helped us plant to restore the creek bank over there because one of our clerks, Carolyn, brought in a picture from her daughter's birthday party back in the 90s of the exact view of that creek from the bridge. The creek bank had eroded anywhere from 5 to 9 feet in the last 30 years. So we decided that it's about time we do something about that. We also research to improve current exhibits and programs. Another big chunk of my job is keeping up with the latest historical and archaeological findings. Staying in communication with the state archaeologist about different things. Hopefully getting ground penetrating radar done at the park soon. Fingers crossed. And also staying current on biological things too. So my specialty, shameless plug for my favorite thing in the world, is, it's not my specialty, I'm not an expert by any means, but ethnobotany. The usage of plants, the relationship the Cherokee have with plants. So I'm always looking for new sources, always looking to talk to people and learn things about that. So that's another big part of my job.
They build like igloo
Whoop.
and a hole to crawl through before there was syphilis or anything else. They would go in there in that igloo and eat the teas or whatever off the bark of trees.
Oh,
Get aspirin from.
like a sweat
Oil
lodge?
tree, and they boil tea. Did they do any of that?
So I don't know I don't believe it was done in like an enclosed space like that. But there was the usage of tree barks and things like that for medicine. So you're going to get me started on a whole tangent.
What about the flu?
Oh yeah, no, the flute was certainly played. A lot of medicinal practices are very intrinsically tied to spiritual practices for the Cherokee as well. And again, that's a whole rabbit trail we could go down. But the flute was a very common instrument. And fun short story I'll give you about the flute is the Cherokee tell a story about a woodpecker pecking holes in a tree. And when the wind blew through it, it made music. So that's where they learned to make flutes from. So just a fun little tidbit. But next slide. So the Council Spring, also known as the Blue Hole Spring, is a sacred site to the Cherokee and a valuable natural resource. This is the most important thing at Red Clay. It was important to the Cherokee people back then, and it's important to the Cherokee people today. So my knowledge about the spirituality associated with the spring is very, very limited because I am not Cherokee. I'm not privy to that information. And the Cherokee, a lot of them tend to hold their spiritual practices very, very closely to their chest. And I don't blame them after what happened to their people. But what I do understand is that the world is divided into 3 layers. There's the sky world, the middle world that we occupy, and then the underworld. When I say underworld, what do you guys think of? What comes to mind? Evil, right? That's usually what we think. But that's not necessarily how it is in Cherokee culture. The underworld is more about the cycles of life and death, about fertility, about things returning to the earth and then being born anew, whether that's an animal decaying and its nutrients feeding a new plant or what have you. And those 3 layers are connected through springs like this one. I like to imagine a big tether going up into the sky, down through the spring, and then down into the underworld. Yeah.
Another thing that I've heard is for the sky world is a place of perfect balance. The underworld is kind of nearer to that. It's not evil, but it's very chaotic. And then the middle world is caught in between.
Yep.
Yeah.
So springs are a place where Cherokee people can come to recenter themselves in between those 3 worlds, to recenter mind, body, and spirit, and ground yourself. And so to this day, we still have Cherokee people do something called going to water. So what that is a cleansing ritual where they will often wade into the water and wash the water over themselves 7 times and pray. And when I'm trying to connect it to kids, I talk about, if any of you guys pray, what do you pray for? Health for a sick loved one, for guidance, for safe travels. They may pray for anything anyone else may pray for. And we do have Cherokee Friends of the Park that I know for a fact do come pray for sick loved ones, especially in the fall when the leaves have fallen off the trees. Because plants are medicine, plants are helpers. That medicine is in the water. And that makes it all the more powerful. So because of the cultural significance of this spring, the sacred nature of it, it is a protected natural and cultural site. This is not a blue hole you can take a dip in, unless you know. Someone asked, I actually had this conversation earlier. It's how do you know somebody is Cherokee? We cannot legally ask for their citizenship card. That'd be messed up. But if someone If they are brought to us by a Cherokee person, family we're familiar with, that's usually how it works. We'll have people that are familiar with us bring new people and say, hey, this is so-and-so. They would like to go to water. It's like, okay, I know your name, I know your face. Or people will say specifically, hey, I would like to go to water. That's kind of our litmus test for how we know. But if you come up to me and you're like, yeah, I need to take a dip down in there in that spring. No, you don't. Phrase it another way and maybe I'll consider. But if we let anybody and everybody in and out of this spring, within the next 40 years, there would be no more spring. Because it's already pretty badly eroded. And people getting in and out, that's going to kick up more dirt, sand, wear away that rock. Along the back of the spring, if you guys come visit, or if you have visited and you remember, the bank just drops off. So by protecting it, we are hoping to have this spring 200 years in the future for future people to enjoy, just like it was here 200 years ago for the people back then to enjoy and find peace at.
I've been there, and it really is refreshing to go there. I used to play as a boy next to a spring,
Mm-hmm.
and I had lots of memories about making pottery there and stuff like that. But there's just almost a holiness
Yeah,
about the
it's,
spring itself.
no, you're very right. What really, so it's one of the most, not just because I work there, not just because I'm a local. I've been a few places here and there, but the spring is one of the most, if not the most peaceful place I've ever been. Like it is the holiest place. It just is. And it's really interesting because you have people come to the park that don't know anything about the park. You have people from all different belief systems coming in. And they come up to us and they're like, what's the deal with that? I'm like, what do you mean? The spring, like, why does it feel like that? I'm like, well, what do you mean? Like, explain it to me. And I get things like it's peaceful, it's calm, it's quiet, it's relaxing, it's meditative, it's grounding. And again, they have no idea the actual significance of the spring. And it's just really cool to have those experiences and be able to explain that to people like, hey, it is a sacred site to these people. Like, there's just something intrinsically about it. Maybe it's just a slice of beauty in nature, or maybe it is a tether between worlds.
I just need to ask, and forgive me, I may have just missed this, I'm still trying to put some things together. But, so, was this spring a holy place for the Cherokees before they ever started having these counseling?
Yes.
So that's one reason why they chose it.
Yes. So not only did it provide water, but it was also already recognized as a very spiritual and sacred place.
Was this something that was primarily known just to Native Americans around in this area? Or was this a place others would come from?
I'm not too sure. So I'm a bit fuzzy on settler involvement around the time of red clay. I do know that after the Cherokee were removed, it was very much known to everybody else then, that's for sure. Because even right on up to when it became a state park, like people were using it to draw water. Some people still do with permission draw water. Like we had a family whose water was out, for example. Excuse me. So many park visitors talk about, I used to play in there when I was a kid. I'm like, I'm sure you did, sir. And that's because you didn't understand. You didn't know why it's so important. It very well could have been used as a water source by white folks moving in with the permission of the Cherokee. I don't know. It's one of those things that's pretty lost to time.
People don't think about those conversations.
No. I wish people did, man.
My grandfather was the person who found water,
Mm-hmm.
wells, and it seems like that's just a pure way it has to travel over many miles, maybe underground,
Mm-hmm.
and some of them are just tables, and others are always living.
Yeah.
Always living. Some of them they dry up,
Mm-hmm.
just like the Western Cowboy.
Yeah.
But that one seems to be pure or close. I mean, close.
So it produces about 500,000 gallons of water every day. So I actually learned about this the other day because someone said, "What's the magnitude of the spring?" And I said, "What? Can the magnitude, like an earthquake?" And he was like, "No." So like magnitude is used to measure the output of springs. And at 500,000 gallons a day, ours is anywhere from 4 to 8 magnitude. Probably 8 magnitude, which means very, very low output. It's the opposite of earthquakes. It drives me insane. Because with earthquakes, the higher the number, the worse it is. But with springs, the higher the number, the lower the output. So, yeah.
That is the worst,
Yeah. But some springs, like down in Florida, for example, they come from rivers that have parts of them go underground as far north as Canada and travel through the earth on down to Florida. We are waiting on the results from a study with Western Kentucky University to figure out where our spring connects to in the local area. And I guess if we don't figure anything out, we'll spread out a little bit. But it's very interesting to think about because it doesn't dry up. The level does not change. Throughout droughts, throughout storms, it is the same. And it's crazy.
That's a living spring.
Mm-hmm.
And, the earth itself purifies it to a certain point now, I guess. People always love to fish and catch these big monstrosities. They were pure because they had pure streams, purer streams. And people in New York City paid big bucks to get those
nice, good fish, yeah.
They're in our water right now. They're bottom fish.
Mm-hmm.
And they are great. They were so great in the old days, but because of pollution and stuff, it's martyred.
Yeah, that's one of the things we're trying to mitigate with the study too. It's not pollution levels, but since the 80s, there have been elevated levels of things called phosphates, which cause algae to bloom. So if you look at pictures, not since the 80s, if you look at pictures of the spring from even about 10 years ago, there's no algae in it. You look at the 80s, no algae, crystal clear. 90s, crystal clear. Once you get to the 2010s though, you start to see algae in it. And that's when we think the phosphates started climbing. And phosphates can come from things like chicken scratch. So we don't know if it's farmers spreading chicken scratch in their fields, if it's nearby chicken farms. It may have nothing to do with the chickens. But we are wanting to figure out where it comes from so we can work with wherever it's coming from, hopefully, to better manage that waste, that pollution, to preserve the spring for an even longer time.
Okay, so since I used to be a caterer, I'm going to pull back that phosphates.
Hit me.
My roommate in college, she did a hydrology study on a pool that we had in Raccoon Mountain called the Emerald Pool.
Mhm.
And I mean, this is way back in the day. But that pool always had green color to it. And apparently it has higher levels of phosphates, but we think that that comes from gypsum in the water, not just like external phosphates and stuff. That may have some influence on it.
Huh.
But gypsum can be a natural source of phosphates in the water. But with what you're talking about, with there being a noticeable change, that's an external factor. That's
okay.
not just part of the local geology.
Okay.
Were you saying that the algae is in the blue hole or the stream?
It's in the blue hole, specifically. It's not in the creek, just in the spring. So like this is I'm used to looking at it from this side. So there's the bridge. You can see a lot of it if you look off the bridge into the spring. One of the best management we can do for it right now is every year we have a group of college students from the United Gadua Band come out and take care of the spring. Because we always hated having to get in it because it's not ours. We aren't Cherokee. We felt weird about getting into it, and messing with it. We only go over there or get into it if we absolutely have to. So when they showed interest, we were like, yeah, we would love to have you guys come take care of the spring. But nerding out for a second. So this blue color, the picture does not do it justice, I assure you. If you've not seen it, you need to come see it. Especially if you want to see it at its bluest, come in the middle of winter when all the leaves have fallen off the trees. That's when the sunlight will get through at its fullest and it will be its bluest. It's not an arduous trek. It's about 200 yards from the visitor center. So even if it's freezing, you can go out there, look at it, go back to your car, or go in the visitor center to warm up.
Just going by and listening to it and smelling.
Yes.
Well, it's not as hot as this, but I mean, it's a purifier.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this morning, in fact, with my seasonal ranger and a few guests, we did like a mindfulness program down sitting on the bridge by the spring, and it's very, very grounding. It's very relaxing. But here's some of the fun things you can see at the park if you're like me and like critters. That's a red salamander, some beautiful little sweet Betsy, trillium, and a banded sculpin. They're funny little fish that blend in with the creek bed up there. And I could go on about that. I'm ready for the next one. I do too. So, another important thing at the park, we have the eternal flame of the Cherokee Nation. I was about to get into my spiel that I do with kids, like, so what's a memorial? Have you ever heard of a memorial before? I'm glad I caught myself before I genuinely started to do it. So this is a memorial for the people who died on the Trail of Tears, and it also celebrates the reuniting of the Eastern and Western Cherokee at Red Clay in 1984. So after the Trail of Tears, the two groups largely didn't make much contact. They were separated. And so when the flame, the original fire from that very last council meeting at Red Clay, made its way back home, so did the Cherokee. So in the pictures, my other thing with the eternal flame doesn't work because you guys aren't kids. I was going to blow your minds.
You can go right ahead.
So not to age myself, but I'm guilty of this, like children. I think 1984 was a long time ago. I know it's not. I know in my heart of hearts it's not. But we host the Remember the Removal Bike Riders every year. If you're not familiar, they are a group of Cherokee folks who are selected and they train to ride the Trail of Tears on bicycles. It is a very, very intense journey. It's a very intense training program. And they stop at a lot of significant Cherokee cultural sites along the way. So they start at New Echota, and then they come to us. And so it's lunchtime, so we feed them, take care of them. And we give them a tour of the park, let them go to water. So a few years ago, we had just gotten these signs installed. So these signs, a sign installed at the base of the Eternal Flame Hill for accessibility purposes. And I was pushing one of the older Cherokee gentlemen that was traveling with them, not on a bicycle. Kids are like, on a bike? I'm like, no. He was one of the support staff. I was pushing him in a wheelchair. We were going by the sign for the Eternal Flame, and he's like, oh, that's new. That wasn't here many years ago. And I'm like, yeah, do you want to take a look? So he kind of looks at it a minute. And I see his shaky hand point to this gentleman right here. And he says, that's me. And I looked at the picture, and I looked back at him, and sure enough, same style of glasses, same haircut, just a lot more gray now. He was one of the original runners of the flame. So to kids, that's like ancient history. Like, that's so cool. I still think it's neat. But
That song is sacred to me. Sometimes you throw it around the campground and sing it. So it only takes a spark to make fire going. I think that a lot of times it's very peaceful around a campfire.
yeah.
And that would be interesting around this thing too.
So yeah, that the fire that burns in the eternal flame is a remnant, a piece of the original fire from the last council meeting at Red Clay. So I've heard a few versions of the story of how it made its way out west. The first version I was told is that the flame, the ashes and coals, I feel like I said that weird, were packaged into 4 pots, and people took turns carrying those pots all the way from places like Red Clay all the way out west. And they used those ashes and coals to reignite their council fire, their sacred fire in their new home. Well, good friend of the park named Fred Bradley. If you come to the cultural celebration, you will meet him. He does storytelling. And he's just got to ask him about mushrooms. He used to be, side tangent, he used to be a National Park Service ranger in the Smokies. And he is working on translating fungi names into Cherokee, and he's making a book. Ask Fred Bradley about mushrooms. He will probably be wearing a mushroom-related shirt. But he told us, when we interviewed him recently, that there is a kind of mushroom, a species of mushroom, and he gave the Cherokee name, and forgive me, I cannot remember it, that apparently, if you light it on fire, it'll just continue to smolder. So he told us that these mushrooms were used to carry the flame along the Trail of Tears. And it's cool enough that I'm inclined to believe him. I'm like, that's sick, Fred. Like, that's the coolest thing I've ever heard, actually. But no matter how you cut it, the flame, in whatever form, traveled with them on the Trail of Tears. And then in 1951, some elders from the Eastern Band were visiting out west, and they were seeking to bring some of the sacred fire back with them. And who knows the truth of this story, but this is what's always been told at the park. They drove out west in a pickup truck, and they got a big metal garbage can, and they shoveled some of the ashes and coals and flames still burning into that metal garbage can. Think like street fire. That's what I always imagine. I'm like, that feels awful to say, but that's what I imagine. And they took turns sitting in the back of the pickup truck, feeding it little bits of paper and other flammable things to keep it burning all the way from Oklahoma to Cherokee, where they used the flame to light their eternal flame, which is way off to the side, cut off in this picture. Then in 1984, when this memorial was finished being built, a series of 7 young men ran along highways, side roads, up and over the Appalachian Mountains until the very last runner ran up the hill to the eternal flame and lit it for the very first time. And so, almost 150 years later, the flame made its way back home. And what's even cooler about that, gosh, I wish we were at the park so I could just gesture to everything. What's even cooler about that is the hill that the eternal flame sits on. If you're up there next to it, you can see a large portion of the park. You can see the blue hole from it. We think that that's where the council house might have originally been, where that fire would have burned 200 years ago. They didn't know that when they built the memorial up there. The archaeological findings had not been found yet. So it's just so serendipitous that the flame made its way not just back home, but maybe to where it burned all those years ago. And no, they're not being, so the other thing I have to tell kids, the full picture, there's a police car behind them because they're getting police escorted. Kids are always like, did they steal the fire? Are they being chased by the police? I'm like, no. So I was about to say, no, they're not being chased by the police. Just to get that out of there. All right, next slide, Ava. Thank you. Oh, there's Ranger Logan. I forgot I put him in there. Hi, Logan. So, that's an old picture. I haven't updated this. I need to. So, we've got some replica structures at the park that help tell the story of the Cherokee when they were there. And I use the word replica very, very specifically because after the Cherokee were removed from Red Clay, Tennessee did what Georgia did and started laundering the land off. And so the folks that got this land, which please don't ask me about the long line of owners. there's a book. I'd have to look. I do not know off the top of my head. But it was used as farmland. And for whatever reason, I guess to make room for their crops, their cattle, etc., they destroyed everything. All 96 log structures that were at Red Clay. None of them stand today. So we have replicas. We don't even really have, that we know of, from archaeological digs, there are no like home sites that have been found either. And we usually don't even find artifacts at the park. The original archaeological digs conducted in the 70s at the park turned up a very, very, very small number of artifacts. Mostly what we find, mostly what they found then and what we find today, is rusted pieces of metal from farm equipment. And we find a lot of 1930s era pottery shards. I've got several. It's like a plate. It's a ceramic plate. I believe it's from the same one. I've just been collecting pieces as kids bring them up to me and say, "What's this?" I say, "Yep, that's going in my plate cup." Maybe one day I'll have a full plate. So everything we have is a replica, unfortunately. The first picture there is the interior of our farmhouse. So it depicts how the average Cherokee family would have lived in the 1830s. With the caveat, the upstairs is not functional. The upstairs was built after the building was originally built. And whoever built the stairs did not build them up to code. So we don't even like for staff to go up there. We go halfway up the stairs, get our Christmas decorations off the second floor, and go back down half the stairs. So a two-story home would have been an upper class family, typically. So we generally, because the upstairs isn't functional, we generally interpret it as average family. And we do have open farmhouse days, similar to what they do here at Audubon Acres. It's posted on our Facebook, shameless plug, where you can go inside and explore and take a look around and see what life would have been like. Then, picture 2, that is the replica council house. Does that look anything like the council house at New Echota? Does anyone remember? It's okay if you don't. So the one at New Echota was fully enclosed 2-story building. That's not fully enclosed. If you didn't know anything about this, I would say that looks unfinished. So because there was such urgency to meet and move their council from New Echota to Red Clay, they were like, we just got to build somewhere to meet. So they built an open-sided structure. Not 2 stories, just 1, because that's way too complicated. And it's got 7 benches inside. 7 is a continually recurring number in Cherokee culture. Where did I get that? Sorry. A simple parallelogram. I made this. It's a rectangle. Parallelogram.
That is a simple parallelogram.
Genuinely, where did I get that? That's crazy. Anyways, so 3 and 4, we've got a fully functional replica blacksmith shop. What's extra neat about it is the wood that was used to build it is reclaimed 19th century wood. So the time period of the park. I think that's really cool. You guys are like, which is okay. You'll feel excited about it someday. So during the time of the council meetings, it was valued at $35. It was owned by a Cherokee gentleman named Avery Miller, who was seeking refuge from Georgia in the face of all the terrible laws they were passing. And when we talk about the blacksmith shop, we also like to mention, and mention sounds like I'm not, we like to talk about, discuss, that while the Cherokee were at Red Clay, they did own African slaves. The original number was 19, but recent findings indicate that there were 23 enslaved people living at Red Clay full-time. I think Otter something was her last name. She owned several of them, but the majority of them were owned by Chief John Ross. And they potentially would have worked in places like the blacksmith shop. There was an orchard at the park. They would have been working in the orchard. They would have been working in the fields potentially. they were there too. They also had to walk the Trail of Tears alongside the people that unfortunately owned them. And I think my next slide is what's coming up at Red Clay. One of the things that we are wanting to get into is telling the story of the Cherokee freedmen and their struggle for recognition within the Cherokee nations. And that could be a whole like 10-hour presentation. I'm so serious. It's a very, very deep subject to get into. But we have connections with descendants of Cherokee freedmen from the Cherokee Nation that are interested in working with us on this project. So we're very, very much hoping that we can use their voices, we can work with them, we can listen to them, and let them share their story, their experience, and their history. But any questions?
State of Purdue also has a book about Cherokee slavery.
Yes.
I haven't read it, but I'm just gonna assume.
We have like 3 books at the park about it.
I know there's Ties That Bind.
Mm-hmm.
It talks about enslaved people in the Cherokee Nation and the relationships that they had too. I have that on my bookshelf.
A recent one I've been working through about it is called Red Over Black. It's a very, very eye-opening read.
I actually had the experience, I taught for a little while in schools, English is second language, and then I did a bunch of Southern. And so this is one day when I was Southern, social teaching. And I was assigned to a computer lab, and we're talking like 7th grade kids.
Yeah.
So basically, it was kind of easy for me because I just had to give the assignment, tell them to work, and they also had some projects, papers they were working on. So I just kind of started browsing around the room, just kind of curious about what these 7th grade kids were choosing to write about. And I came across this little African American boy sitting there, and lo and behold, he was writing about the Cherokees. And I remember that really got my attention. And I watched him a few minutes and I said, hey, I said, I'm just curious. I said, why did you happen to pick this topic? Why are you even talking about the Cherokees? And he said, because we have Cherokee in my family.
Yeah.
And that just blew my mind. Yeah.
No, it's
Wow.
very, very, it's more prevalent than people think. Like there is from the Cherokee Phoenix, there is a whole super duper long article detailing the Cherokee freedmen's fight for recognition within the Cherokee nations. It's such a long drawn out back and forth of, we recognize you. Actually, no, you don't. You're not Cherokee at all. Actually, yeah, you are. Taking that back. No, you aren't. Like it's so insane. The back and forth, back and forth. And my manager actually had the honor to speak with the descendant of a Cherokee freedman. I can't remember what conference it was, but she took pictures of every single PowerPoint slide that she had presented, so I could experience a fraction of it too. But it is very, very eye-opening, and I'm glad you were able to have that experience with that child. And
We also know from Audubon that in the journal, I mean, we know that at the Grand Mission there were, African American kids that were also in that school. Because that was kind of brought out and made this into drama,
yeah,
several years ago. And it was simply the fact that in that school it was very unique because the kids all lived together. You know, if you were in that school, you were a boys' school. And so, there was definitely was white kids, there was African American kids, and the Cherokee kids.
Yep.
Also, was Van, you know, the Van.
Yes.
I guess he would have been, he was in that party, he left before some things happened. Wasn't he the Cherokee that had the most slaves?
Yes, the house that is still standing, that is Chief Joseph Van's house, was built by slave labor. On the topic of exhibits about slavery in the Cherokee Nation, the work they have done at the Van House is incredible. Like, they found these slave schedules with these, basically it'll say like male or female, like if you're a mother. They've been able to piece together the little bit of information from slave schedules to put names to some people. And they're able to tell those individual stories. And it's a very, very incredible exhibit. They do a fantastic job interpreting this part of Cherokee history over there. And we want to be able to do that too.
So was that mainly a result of interaction with white culture and what was happening in America with slaves and all? Or was this something that goes further on back that they were doing anyway?
It's a very, very complicated topic, which is why making an exhibit is so hard. It can be,
Ward was the first one to own slaves.
yeah,
Nancy Ward, yeah, she was the first reporter that Cherokee slave owner.
I think some Native American tribes that had like slaves captured.
Mhm.
But I'm not sure if that Cherokee did that.
Yeah, it became profitable to sell your war captives,
yeah,
basically.
yeah. That was how slavery started in the Cherokee Nation. Prisoners of war.
It's a complicated subject.
Yeah. If you attribute it all, it's like, oh, well, that's just a product of assimilation to white culture. Then that's taking away their agency as people who can make decisions. Like, that's kind of taking any blame. So you have to hold that in mind while also considering the reasons that any other group of people had slaves, for greed, because they saw them as lesser. So I think the truth of the matter is somewhere in between those two ideas. But where that line, that dot is exactly, I have no idea.
I've always been conflicted about, and I'm knowingly uneducated on how all of it worked, but I've been curious about the differences in treatment between different, like either the large plantations
Mhm.
that you see in the Deep South versus a Cherokee family that may have, 2 to 5 slaves. So
Mhm.
how were they treated? Were they seen as more of a community member, or were they the same abuses? And that's going to, I think that's going to change a lot depending on the household.
Yeah. And you have to be careful with the narratives of, oh, well, they treated them really well. Because if you start saying, oh, well, they treated them very well,
You still have no autonomy as a human.
right, you were still owned by another human being. So regardless of how well they were treated, you still have to keep in mind that they were property. They were owned.
Yeah, I think that, like slavery itself is like a European idea because it's considered property and
Mhm.
like bills of sale and all. The Cherokee, I mean, and most Native Americans didn't really have that same kind of concept.
Yeah.
I'm
It's,
interested in knowing the God of the Eastern Cherokee, which were mostly farmers, they say, or been written, they were mostly farmers, they lived in houses.
Mhm.
Yes. Lean-tos, whatever. With the Western Cherokee, that they call their God, they just mostly great father, or
Mhm.
I know they tell stories about, butterflies or something coming back.
so you're interested in the religious aspects.
Could be different in every place.
There are definitely some differences between Eastern and Western Cherokee cultures, especially after removal. I don't know much about in the way of differences in religious practice between the two, but one difference I do know is dialect. So
That,
dialect, so how they speak Cherokee. Pronunciations can be different. Ava, do you know anything about potential religious differences?
I'm not going to make a call on that one.
That's okay.
I'm not qualified.
it's Sequoia who made the alphabet.
In about 1820.
Did he have a word for God? Great grandfather, great father?
So there were Cherokee translations of the Bible, and that's where a lot of people get confused because there's one anthropologist written that made the claim
had a conversation about that
it's
literally today.
that way. But that's because Christianity had already been introduced to the Cherokee by that point, and they basically just Cherokeeized the word
Hmm.
for Yahweh. So there's a lot of that. But yeah, I'm not going to say too much more.
Yeah, I would.
Again, religious stuff.
But we serve,
People play that close with
we
their
served in churches, and some children of our parishioners chose to go be with the Cherokee, like in Cherokee, North Carolina.
Yeah.
And teach, because there's a lot of alcoholism,
Hmm.
stuff like that. And we send people to these places to try to get them through that struggle.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. It's a very, very unfortunate situation and epidemic within a lot of our Native peoples and First Nations peoples in the United States. And it's heartening to hear that there are people that are actively trying to make a difference, whether it is from outside help or if it's from within. But next slide, if you don't mind. The last slide, second to last, actually. So, looking toward the future, I talked about our cultural celebration on August 8th and 9th. Shameless plug again. Hopefully this year, if the funds continue to not, if the funds are not in limbo anymore, it's federal funds. We're going to be repaving the interpretive trail at the park because gosh, it needs it. Which is the paved walking trail where you'll see all the, like the Eternal Flame, the spring, the replica structures. We have an annual Christmas at Red Clay program. It's a lantern-lit tour of the park led by living history guides where we discuss the Moravian missionaries' impact on the Cherokee and how their winter traditions changed as their relationship with the Moravians grew. Field trips, field trips, field trips. Gosh, yes, I'm already scheduling some for the fall, and Lord, I already have a few for the spring. But one of the things we are most excited for, other than hoping to start, I have the research, it's just figuring out a place to start for a slavery exhibit. One of the other things we are working on getting a grant for is getting Spanish language support for either the indoor museum or for the signs outside. So Red Clay is in very close proximity to Dalton, Georgia, which has a very, very, very high concentration of Hispanic folks, most of them who are English second language. So I was a fool and did not take Spanish in high school. I wanted to be different and take German.
Oh, man.
Least useful thing I could have ever done to myself. I wish I could kick high school me. So we have these opportunities to connect with people that are just missed because none of us on staff speak Spanish. So we are hoping to be able to share the story of the park with them through some sort of, like, some parks, some places have like voice boxes where you can hit the button and you can hear the sign being read in Spanish. Or you can use a smart device to scan a QR code and see the panel in Spanish. Like, we're exploring different avenues for this, and it's something that really, really has weighed on my heart, especially since I work with schools so often. We get a lot of Dalton City schools where the vast majority of their students are Hispanic. And yeah, most of those kids, they learn English coming up through the school system. But when their parents come on field trips, I hate for the kids to have to spend the time translating it for their parents when there's a better way, where the parents can engage with it themselves and the child can learn and listen and not have to worry about making sure their parent knows what's going on. So fingers crossed, big fingers crossed that we do get this grant. I'm so, so hopeful. Yes. But next slide, it's just a question slide. But yay, the blue hole again. So does anybody have any questions for me?
I know. That's a little.
I'm sorry.
No, don't apologize. Oh my gosh.
We're talking about the language. I think I mentioned
I mean, that's very true.
I've had that happen. My language is French.
Ah.
But what I want to ask is, and I've heard this just along the way,
Mhm.
in different circles, loosely, so to speak. Do you think there will ever, I know that like in Cherokee, they're working hard to teach the young people the Cherokee.
Yes.
But I've heard often, the question comes up, why do we not allow Cherokee to be taught in our schools if there are kids that want to learn? Why can that not be a language requirement since it's so much a part of our
Mhm.
history in this area? I don't know. I just wondered if y'all ever heard anybody seriously.
So probably what it is there are immersion schools in Cherokee and in Oklahoma where the kids go through school being taught in Cherokee. They're speaking Cherokee, they are learning it. And that's still, in the grand scheme of things, a relatively new program. So I'm hopeful that as that becomes more established and as the language comes back from the brink of endangerment, that there may be programs offered in our area where these kids that have grown up in these schools become teachers and they want to teach Cherokee. And maybe they branch out. Like, it's a very, very real possibility that in the next several years we could start seeing that. I think it would be awesome because some schools teach Latin.
Yeah.
So why not learn a native language? I wonder if out west there are any native language programs in public schools or private schools. Might have to look into that just for my own curiosity. But I like that idea a lot.
I mean, they do have the free online classes, like I've taken two of them, through Cherokee, and it's completely free, and you sign up for it, it's like 2 hours a week, and it's kind of a chaplain setting. But, you know, it's really good for just building up a really good.
Mhm.
But that goes all the way up, I think they have 4 different classes.
I want to say so, yeah.
Completely immersive, like it's all in Cherokee. But, yeah, that's a really good program they've got there.
I always have to ask too, because this goes way back to when I was actually working, but, so do y'all still have times where you do things for teachers in the summer, where they can come
Mm.
with the, standards, you know, that they have to teach? I know at one time y'all did that. But
Yes.
I haven't seen that in your lives on this one.
So I was asking my manager about that the other day because I had another teacher ask me. It has not been a thing in many, many years. I'm trying to wrap my head around working with the county, at least Bradley County, to set something up like that. I know we were able to do it like a teacher, like teachers got professional development credits at this event, and we got funding from the Conservancy for it. But I need to pick my manager's brain about it, and I would really like to. Thank you for putting that back at the forefront of my brain.
And just so you know, I mean, I've been out here for a good long while, and I've always wondered why we weren't doing something like that for our teachers, and then I knew that y'all were doing it, but in the book, it's fantastic stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, it just, if you ever do something like that, start out with it, but, you just take a help on it.
Yes, yes. I will certainly, and if I get it going, I will certainly bug Ava and Jessica about it.
Please have something in the summer. I've always thought, why do we not have something in the summer? Teachers to come in and learn some things about Cherokee culture.
Mhm.
And natives, you know, native, Indians, Native Americans, because I don't even know, I've lost track of what grade they were teaching about Cherokee.
It seems like it's second, fourth, and sixth. But the Cherokee do come up. They can be used. That sounds bad. That part of history and Cherokee culture can be taught to meet standards that are relevant to kindergarten, first, third, and fifth as well. So we get a wide variety of kids. Like I know in Cleveland City schools, Chattanooga City schools, in 8th grade, there is a book they read that's relevant to Cherokee history and culture. So I've talked to 8th grade groups before about it. It's been really, really heartening, the amount of field trips and how our educational programs have grown in the last few years since I've been there, to include more and more schools. It's slightly intimidating, but again, it's very, very heartening to see teachers, despite changes coming to standards and to say as little as possible what can be taught in classrooms. It's very encouraging that year after year we have teachers in schools reaching out because they want to include this part of history in their curriculum in some way.
We've noticed a lot of that here too.
Mhm.
I mean,
I'm sure.
Almost as soon as we started doing our archaeology history program, they picked up like that.
Yeah.
One of our highest.
It's incredible. It really is. So, yeah, I think I do want to do something for the teachers. So thank you. I'm already thinking about that. Maybe we can work together on it.
So realize we never talked about what happened.
Oh my God, yeah. Okay, so they did get their comeuppance. There were some assassinations out west after the Trail of Tears. So Major Ridge was shot and killed. Was John Ridge shot and killed too? So yeah. So John Ridge was Major Ridge's son. He also got shot. One of the things that's said about Major Ridge is that when he signed the Treaty of New Echota, he essentially signed his own death warrant. And so people did come for them. Stan Waddy, I know, I mentioned him as part of the treaty party. Someone attempted to kill him, but he survived. And he later became a chief. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, people got killed for it, to put it lightly.
I was also just curious, like, this was so unpopular. How is it that they were the only people in the room when the negotiations were happening? Did the others just not know about it?
If I'm not mistaken, largely delegates from the Nationalist Party were in D.C. at the time, I want to say. I'm pretty sure John Ross was in D.C. at the time when this was all occurring. Mm-hmm. Yeah, D.C. So it was kind of like a, hey guys that are actually down there back home, you want to come make a deal? While a lot of the delegates from the Nationalist Party were lobbying in D.C., again, going through those congressional and legal routes. Oh, there's one more thing I want to share with you guys. I forgot it was in my pocket this whole time. So this is my favorite artifact we have at the park. And this is my favorite one. Again, I work with kids to show kids. So does anyone have any ideas what this is?
Made out of rock?
It is. I want you to notice that it's flat on one side and curved on the other.
The unified?
It's a good guess. So this was a scraping stone. This is something that a Cherokee woman would have held and scraped animal skins to prepare them to be tanned to eventually be traded with. And what I love about this is you can feel exactly where, if she was right-handed, where that pointer finger would have been. So I'll let you guys pass that through, y'all.
There's an arrow right here that I found on Clellan Island
Ooh,
that has hand polishing on it. I mean, you can put it exactly where you want.
that's so
You're
cool.
left-handed, she like me.
Ah,
Yeah.
so yeah, I do think this person was right-handed because of where that spot is. But somebody used this for hours and hours, long enough to wear a spot in where they would have held it. And it's not as difficult necessarily. It is sometimes for adults to connect with history. But I find with my younger audiences, when they can feel and hold something that someone would have used hundreds, maybe thousands of years ago. I do not know the date on that. I'm not an archaeologist. Nor do I have access to carbon dating. If you know someone who can tell me, I'd love to know. Yeah. That's fair.
It's made out of wood paint shirt.
Okay. All right. Ava knowing things. Ava teaching me things. Yeah, I that is a big hole in my knowledge, archaeology and identification of artifacts. I can kind of tell you. Okay. We can skill share.
So I can, I can put that one in here.
But yeah, that's my favorite piece in our collection. And I'm very thankful. I'm thankful for what NAGPRA is doing, Native American Graves Protection and Repatriation Act. So funerary items that would have been buried with people, are being given back to the nations that they were taken from. So we've had to do kind of an upheaval, an overhaul of parts of our exhibit, because lo and behold, a lot of the stuff we included were funerary items, jewelry, effigies,
There were those
full pots.
identification cards that I gave to Dr. Shelton when I was going through our collection here. A lot of Palmer's collection went to y'all too. There was a stack of like 20 cards that said to red clay.
Okay. But this is one of the ones that we were able to retain. And I'm very, very thankful. But yeah, any last minute questions?
Have y'all ever done any metal detecting out there?
Not that I know of. I know it's illegal. Yes. Like, you as a visitor cannot metal detect.
Well, I know that.
Yeah.
I mean, I have to bring a professional crew.
So we would want to do ground penetrating radar, because, well, we do suspect that there are bodies at the park. We do not know. We have hunches on where they could be, but that's kind of our priority over artifact finding. I'd have to ask my manager if anyone's ever done, like, professionally done metal detecting. Someone likely has, but I'm not sure. Sorry, I was like, that's illegal. Anyways, let me answer your question.
Not just local archaeologists use metal detecting. Ground penetrating radar is awesome stuff. It's basically no invasive.
Oh, yeah. I'm not,
Oh, well, you could have said that, goofy. Well, I appreciate you not saying that, because I would have been mildly intimidated.
Well, so, again, trying to fix it together.
Yeah.
So, are you saying you think there could be burials that would predate everything, like, history that we know of, with the council and the Cherokee community there? Is it possible there actually were other Native Americans or other types of people before that time that used this area and thought something about this thing? I'm just asking.
I don't know.
I never thought of that.
It's probably all of it, but
Yeah, I think it's
people live and you have people die.
it's not, one of the things we suspect is not related to the Cherokee, actually. So the park does have some Civil War history to it too. There was a Civil War hospital at the park because of the spring. But also there was a Freedmen church, not Cherokee Freedmen, but Freedmen, post-Civil War. There was a church that is still nearby, but they had a graveyard. So it's very likely that there are freedmen buried. Okay, my bad. I'll be quiet. The last little squeak. Yeah. But no, it's very likely that there are people buried in some sort of graveyard in unmarked graves. And if that is true, we would like to be able to remember and honor them and give them gravestones.
I don't know about ground penetrating radar. We're ambiguous on certain types of soil, so.
It's kind of a gamble.
Hmm.
It's a gamble we would like to take.
Yeah, I worked for Lawrence Alexander,
Mhm.
and he's coming for a while in 2000, and they did a project at Cleveland Airport,
Mhm.
and when he wanted to look for what was believed to be a early 19th century cemetery there, he resorted to scraping the topsoil off and looking for burial pits. I don't know that you want to do that in the park.
Not necessarily. There is another spot at the park that our state archaeologist pointed out last year to us that we did not even see. If you come to the cultural celebration, find me. I need to show you. But there is a part at the park where you don't notice it when you're on top of it that it's actually sloped. But when you look at it from a distance, you can tell that it very, like, it's not natural the way it curves up gently and curves back down. So that's another suspected location.
Another thing that I guess exists somewhere in the curation facility that that Cleveland Airport excavation, we found a feature with a lot of early 19th century, 1820s China and two Cherokee Indigenous vessels.
That's cool.
They're very fragmentary, but the big pieces of rim exist. So that'd be a nice thing to display. It's not nag for it, because of course.
Yeah.
I put it on. I don't even know the name of the site number or anything. That'd be interesting. Put that on display somewhere.
Yeah. We've got, so a lot of our collection now is hundreds of arrowheads. I've been through them all, yes. Axe heads, and a lot of pottery sherds. We've got some really, really nice pieces, and we've got kind of a hole in our museum now because one of our digital exhibit that we didn't care for that much, not Rebecca, it was a TV, and it didn't do a lot to help tell the story. So I may use that as a rotating exhibit spot and put some of those pottery pieces on display. I haven't quite figured it out yet, but I'm working on it. But yeah, no, we've got some really, really, really nice pieces.
That may be before.
I used to do work for him. And
The name is very familiar. I don't think I worked with him.
yeah, I was just curious.
Did you just stuff out there Audubon with him, or was it?
Maybe.
Yeah.
No, I never heard it anywhere in Tennessee except that one. I did the lab analysis on that pottery for Cleveland Airport, and I was in the field at over there is on the Tennessee River. There's going to be a nuclear power factory made for making nuclear power plants equipment down on the I think Guttersville Basin, or maybe on Nickajack. I think it's on Nickajack. Anyway, we did a little survey out there, but nothing ever came up because, well, Fukushima came along and nuclear power boom kind of evaporated.
Yeah.
That factory never went built. So.
Was that the Delta?
No, it was a company making the equipment for this. Chicago Bridge and Iron was a company name. It was just that's a place on the river that's been potentially an industrial park all along, but this was a new use for it. We did a little survey out there. I don't think we found anything, except there was an archaic site by the river bank that had stones and starcraft rock and all that. It would have been interesting to mitigate, but no mitigation or about.
I was curious because I knew that Lawrence, my dad has one of his collections. And Lawrence was who was here, I guess around the year 2000, this time out when they were building this. And so he was very instrumental in having people like my dad to look at the collections to see if they had. That's why I asked if you were out there.
That was cool. I think Lawrence was mainly involved in this place before and after I was there. I remember he didn't talk to us much about being involved with us when I was there. I was there between 2006 and 2009.
He actually served as president for several years around that time.
Yeah, I remember that.
And Audubon gave